Hey there guys, and welcome to my October wrap-up. So in the month of October, I have read a total of 12 books. I have 3 5 stars, 4 4.5 stars, 3 4 stars, 1 3.5 stars, and 1 1.5 stars. But in total, I have got 16 books this month off my TBR because I have DNF'd 4. So to take you through them, I will start with my DNFs. The first book of the month that I DNF'd was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I did not like this book. I did this as a buddy read with Brooke at the very start of the month because there was a new Rebecca film. Brooke really wanted to watch it. It was very highly anticipated for her, and she desperately wanted to read this book. And I thought, not a chance am I going to read this book unless I do it as a buddy read. So I jumped onto Brooke's buddy read. I started it. It's a classic. I kind of knew going in that I was going to be struggling, and in the end, I couldn't do it. I DNF'd it. I think I was about 50 pages in. I just thought, it's not even worth the hassle of me trying. I know I'm not going to finish it. I know I'm not going to like it. I might as well put it down now. So I did. Brooke then went on to tell me what happened at the end. Didn't particularly care. I didn't care. Couldn't care less. So I'm glad I DNF'd this one. This is going to be on hold. I'm going to be doing a unhaul soon. So expect to see this one there. Next, the book I DNF'd after that was Pig's Head by David Owen. This was actually gifted to me by Mel from a book fiend named Mel. She sent me a lot of gifts over from Australia, including a couple of books, as well as some bookish related things, some stationery sets, and then some sweets. And this was one of the books she sent me. It was on her TBR as well. She fancied reading it, so we said we'd buddy read it. I didn't do well with buddy reads apparently this month. I DNF'd this one. I got about halfway, but I just couldn't get my head around it. I didn't like the way it was written. The story was written as though the narrator just referred to himself in third person. Like, our main character in this book is called Pufferfish. He's a police officer who is trying to solve the murder of a decapitated head that was found in a campsite. And he kept referring to himself like, well, Pufferfish likes this. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, no, you're talking about yourself. Don't refer to yourself as Pufferfish. I don't walk around saying, Connor fancies a drink. No. I say, I want a drink, or I want to read this book. I want to get rid of this book. I didn't like it. I was really upset with it. I tried pushing through because it was a buddy read and it was a gift, and I don't really like DNFing gifts. But this was not a book for me. So in the end, I put it down, and I don't regret it. I'm sorry, but I really don't. So I got rid of this one. Then after that, I started reading a couple of arcs that I got from NetGalley because I fancied getting some of them off my TBR. They come out this month, so I thought, perfect opportunity. The first one was The Illustrated Child by Polly Crosby. I started reading this one, and I remembered that I requested this one when I first started with NetGalley, and I thought, I'm not going to get accepted for anything. Got accepted for a lot. This was one of the ones I didn't particularly want, but I thought it'd be a nice, easy read to get my percentage up. Turns out, I didn't like it. This is a story about a young girl and her father who are quite down on the luck. They don't really have a lot of money, and her father then becomes quite wealthy, making illustrated books with his daughter as the main character. And the story, I think, just kind of goes around her and her father becoming quite famous because of that. And then when she looks back into it later on, there's more of a mystery around it. I don't know. I didn't really particularly care. But the book is out now. I hope people will give it a go if it sounds good and people enjoy it. For me, not my kind of thing at all. Didn't really like it. Didn't like the characters. I didn't care. I think I got to about 10%. And that was after like 3 days. So I put it down in the end. I just thought, if it's taking me this long, I'm not going to be enjoying it. I might as well just put it down. Again, don't regret it. I'm sad about it because it was a NetGalley arc. I really wanted to love it and give it the praise that books deserve. This one just fell short for me, and I know it's my own fault because it's a book I wasn't too interested in and I requested it. It's my own fault. But I was younger then, back when I started with NetGalley in June. So forgive me. Then the final one was a book I was really interested in and I was really anticipating, and that was The Christmas Killer by Alex Pine. This book is about a police officer that has put someone away and he has to move to a new town because him and his wife want a fresh start. Then a box appears on his doorstep with, I think it's got a dead bird in it, and it's like a Christmas poem of the 12 days of Christmas, one body for every day, and he has to figure out who the killer is before he kills the people. But it was so badly written, in my opinion. It just felt like a first draft. And that really upset me because I expected so much, but it really felt like a first draft. I didn't like how it was written at all. Yeah, it felt very stupid, and I didn't like it. Didn't agree with me at all. But it was like a murder mystery, and I thought, I'm going to love this. Didn't love it. And I'm really sad that I had to DNF that one because it was a very highly anticipated book, and I actually predicted a 5-star for it. I was wrong. So let's get into the books that I actually finished. A lot better, some of them. So the first book I finished was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I won this book in a giveaway for Horrorthon. This book was actually the group book, and I won the giveaway for it. I got it, didn't read it for Horrorthon. I got a little bit excited. I wanted to read it a bit earlier, so I jumped the gun. And it was the first book that I didn't DNF this month. And I loved it. It was a great book. It was 5 stars. This is a book that follows a woman called Patricia Campbell who has a book club with a group of friends, and then a mysterious stranger moves into town. They all start lusting after him, and then a group of children suddenly start going missing. Things start happening, and they start thinking, maybe this guy is not what they think he is. And then crap goes down. That's as much as I can tell you. I do have a full review for this because this book was actually my thriller of the month this month. So I will link that up in the cards. Make sure you go and check that out. I loved this story. I thought it was very well written. It was a good introduction into horror. I think I said that in my review, so I won't talk about it too much. But I'm not a big horror reader, so it was a good introduction to horror for me. And I thought it was quite thriller-esque with horror elements. I didn't pronounce the H in horror there. I'm really sorry. It's my mank. But if you want to know more, go and check that review out. I've linked it up in the cards. And yes, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Then the next book that I read after that, I continued my Mortal Instruments journey. And I went with City of Lost Souls. And boy, was I disappointed. I have put the vlog up for this. You can go and check that out if you want to know more. I'm going to be referring to you. I'm going to refer you to a lot of my vlogs. Just feel free to go check them out. This really disappointed me. I thought the story was pretty much non-existent, and I feel as though the characters had completely reverted back to who they were in book 1. I'm not going to give spoilers, but particularly Clary and Jace were horrible. Jace, in particular, of all of these characters, has done a lot of growing as a person since book 1. He has gone from the stereotypical YA fantasy bad boy into someone that's actually quite caring and nice and loving. And in this book, he just reverted back to that completely. And then Clary became awful. Like, she wasn't even how she was in book 1, because I enjoyed her in book 1. In this book, she sacrificed her family, her friends. She didn't care about anyone. She didn't care what she put people through, because I'm in love with Jace. And that really, really angered me. And Alec, who is another main character in this book. Alec started out the series very possessive, very, very controlling, very moody, very full of hate towards a lot of characters. And over time, he has developed himself and become quite a lovely character, and I really enjoyed him. And then further on, and especially in this book, he just turned right back to that possessive, horrible person that would sacrifice people for his own gains. He didn't care about anyone because he was that controlling and possessive. And these weren't the characters that we saw in City of Fallen Angels just before. And they weren't the characters, which I will tell you about a little later on, they weren't the characters in City of Heavenly Fire, which was after this one. So this book was just a weird mind flip, and I don't know whether they reverted the characters back to this for plot convenience, or whether Cassandra Clare just really didn't want to write these books, but she had to because she was like contractually obligated, or she just wanted the money, so she just wrote what she could be bothered with. I don't know, but I hated this book with a passion. There were some saving graces. Isabel, Simon, they are my elite characters. I love them so much. And to be fair, the story did increase. I preferred the stories it got later on. The quality of it was much better. I don't think any of that made sense, but hopefully as a whole, you know what I'm trying to say. So in the end, I gave this a 3.5 star. Begrudgingly, the very first and only book up to now in the Shadowhunter series that I haven't given a 5 star to. It was a real fall from grace, and this book hurt me to the point where I think if I ever do a reread, which I probably will, I don't think I will read this book. I will just pretend this one didn't exist. It hurt me that bad. Then, after that, I read Third Degree by James Patterson and Andrew Gross. This is a story about the Women's Murder Club, and this is part of the series. This is the third book in said series. I'm doing this as a buddy read with Jade. Can't tell you too much about the books because it's part of a series, and this is the third one in there. But it was quite emotional. It was quite dark. It was very, very serious, and I really loved it. I thought it was a really good book. In comparison to the other two, I'm not so sure where it fell. I wasn't in love with this one, I think, as much as the others. So I gave this one a 4-star rating, but it was a very high 4. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good story. I think Jade said this one might have been her favourite one of all so far. But it was really good. It was really emotional. And yeah, I loved it. Can't really tell you too much about it because of the fact that it's part of a series, but it features the Women's Murder Club, who are a series of strong female characters within law enforcement. We have a lawyer, we have a police officer, we have a journalist, and we have a forensic pathologist. And it's about them coming together to inform each other on necessary information on how to solve a particular crime. And I loved it. It was a great story. Then after that, me and Jade went straight into reading 4th of July, which was the 4th book in the Women's Murder Club series. And I loved this one. This was my favourite one so far. It features a court case. Now, I've recently kind of come to the realisation that I really love court cases in books. I don't know why, but I really do. And this suited me so well because it was a good court case. It started out with such a strong opening. It was dark from the off. I loved that. It was absolutely amazing. And it just got darker and darker as it went in, and it had elements of a court case, and it had that strong female friendship that I loved. Surprisingly, I loved this one probably the most, and I think this story featured the Women's Murder Club as a whole less than any others. This one focused specifically on Lindsay Boxer, who is our main character, and the Women's Murder Club were not featured in this one as much as previous books, but I love this one. But I think this is the first book that James Patterson co-wrote this with Maxine Petro, and I think it might be her writing style because I loved this from the minute I opened the book. And I think it might be down to the writing style as opposed to the stories. So I'm interested to read further on because every book in the Women's Murder Club series from now on is written with Maxine Petro as a co-author. So I'm interested to see what I think of the stories as we move further on. I really love this. I gave this a 5-star rating, and I would really recommend you checking this series out if that's something you fancy. If you fancy a police procedural book with strong female characters and strong female relationships and found family, definitely something you should be giving a go. Then, for Horrorthon, I undertook a horrible journey. I read It by Stephen King. The chonker, the beast, the big ass, a book. I read this, really enjoyed this. I listened to this mainly on audiobook because I was finding it a bit difficult to read the physical book after a while. I don't know what's going on with my hair. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to look a bit emo for a minute. I listened to this via audiobook mainly because I struggled with reading the physical book because it's freaking hooch. And I really enjoyed the story. I love listening to it on audiobook because you got to hear the characters' voices. You got to hear the voice of Pennywise when he spoke, and I love that. It was a really good experience overall, but it was not perfect. There were parts that I thought was completely unnecessary. No spoilers, but mainly the Derry interludes that were part of this book. They serve no purpose. They could go quite easily. And I think that's what I found throughout this book series. I found parts that I thought, that don't need to be in there, that could go. That don't need to be in there, that could go. It'd end up making the book about 700 pages, much more manageable. Also, that scene, like everyone talks about that scene. I knew that scene was coming, so I just thought, I'll get to it, it'll be fine. And I was just like, why? Why? I don't understand. It was written in, like, the way I assumed it was written, it was just, it made no sense. And then it kind of came with an explanation. I thought, oh, so it explains why this had to happen. And then I listened to it and I was like, nope, still none the wiser. But if you've read that book, you know the scene. To be fair, if you have not read the book, you probably know the scene because I knew it before I read it. But it was a good book. I enjoyed the book overall. My reading experience was a 4-star. I don't know whether that is because of the audiobook though. Because I think if I'd have read this, I would have given it a lot less because I'd have got bored reading it to the point where I hated it. So I'm going to give it, it's a 4-star, but I'm going to attribute that to the audiobook. After that, I then finished the final book in the Mortal Instruments series, City of Heavenly Fire. Let me tell you, my friends, I had a full-on emotional breakdown. I vlogged this. The vlog will be going up later this week, so make sure you check the vlog for this out if you have read it, because it is spoiler-filled, as all of my Shadowhunter books are. I had a full emotional breakdown. I went through some stuff with this book. I loved it. I hated it. I cried. I laughed. It was... People always refer to Clockwork Princess, right? Of the Infernal Devices as the most perfect ending you could ask for. And I felt it was. With this, I felt this was the most perfect ending I could have asked for from this series. Because I didn't know what else to expect. I didn't know how it was going to end. I felt this was a perfect ending. We got introductions to new characters in the next series. We got throwbacks to the characters from the Infernal Devices. We got to say goodbye to some of the characters from this book, and we got to see them on their journey. I loved it. I cried. I cried so much. Great book. 5 stars. Loved it. Check it out. And make sure you check out the vlog when that goes up later in the week. Then for Horrorthon, I read Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. Let me tell you something about this book. I gave this book a 1.5 star rating. It was unnecessary. All of it. It was so boring. I was bored all the way through. Someone described this book to me as Scooby-Doo but for adults. Scooby-Doo but horror. Scooby-Doo but comedy. Let me tell you, there was no comedy. There was no horror. Crap. I hated it. It was just so unnecessary. There was nothing redeeming about it. Actually, that is not true. I actually really enjoyed the characters. I thought they were good characters. But the story was the worst. It was so badly written. Half of the... when they talk, I don't know what you call that in books. When they talk in books, half of it was written with like speech marks. The other half was written as like a script with their name and then the line, how you would normally read a script. And I thought, well, why would you differentiate between the two formats? That makes no sense. You've got to stick with one or the other. It didn't. And then the story had like the worst twist in the world. I really didn't like that twist. It was awful. And I just felt as though the story served no purpose. I didn't like it at all. I hated it. There was many times I actually wanted to DNF. The only reason I didn't is because it's been so highly anticipated and it was a gift. And I thought, you know what? I'm getting to the end of it if it kills me. Didn't like it. Awful. I'm very sorry. But I don't really know how else to describe this. This is basically when they were younger, some kids who were basically like the Scooby-Doo kids solved mysteries with the help of their dog. Then further down the line, as adults, they're all a little bit messed up in the head. And they decide the only way to get over that is for them to go back to where they had their last case. And crap happens, basically. Don't read it. Who cares? Then, after that, I read PSI... Oh, is there police outside? A fire truck. I'll be back. Okay. I thought there was a fire truck or police or an ambulance outside because there were flashing lights. I just paused it, got up and looked. It was a tow truck. Never mind. Where was I? Oh yeah. The next book I read was P.S. I Still Love You, which was the second book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series. I enjoyed this. I listened to this one on audiobooks. I listened to the first one. I think that's how I'm going to listen to the third one. I know it is. I started listening to it. I thought it was a good story. I really enjoyed it. I loved being back with these characters. My issue with it is, I think the relationship is actually quite toxic. I'm sorry if I've just shaken the camera. I've just kicked my tripod. I think the relationship was actually quite toxic. I really didn't like it, to the point where it made me angry and made me not want to read the third book at all. Okay, basically, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but actually I am. I'm going to go into spoilers. So if you have not read To All the Boys I Loved Before 2, which is P.S. I Still Love You, when I put my hand down, you can play again. Basically, I feel as though throughout this story, Lara Jean was being gaslit by Peter. There were so many instances where she knew for a fact what was going on. She knew that Peter was being manipulated by Genevieve, and he was either too naive to see it, or he didn't care. And it really bothered me to see him treat her that way. And then she kind of went with the new guy, and I loved him so much. He genuinely cared about her. And in the end, it was just Peter told Lara Jean she was being stupid, and she said, oh, you're right, it's fine, I was being stupid, you did nothing wrong, I understand why you're constantly being friends and choosing your ex-girlfriend over me all the time. And I was just sat there thinking, it's disgusting how she's being gaslit, and it's disgusting how this is being represented as a good relationship in this book. I hated it. I was so mad about it. I'm still mad about it, and I hate Peter. I hate him. I can't stand his character. It's unnecessarily awful the way he treats her. And I've started the third book now. Not going to tell you too much about it because I don't really have an opinion on it. But going into this third book, I hate his character. And there's so much being spoken about, oh, I love Peter. And I'm just sat there thinking, shut up. Shut up. And I'm so mad at the author for making this toxic relationship romanticized, and I hate it. I hate it so much. But I'm done. I'm going to move on. I love the story. I gave it a 4 stars. It would have been a 5 stars, but I hate that character and I hate how it's being represented. So I'm done. Okay, next book. What's my next book? Okay, so my final books that I read this month were the Saga of Lart and Krepsley. I read these as a 12-hour readathon on the final 2 days of Horrorthon, so on the 30th and the 31st of October. I read these for Horrorthon. I did it as a 12-hour readathon because I read the Saga of Darren Shan as a 24-hour readathon in March, and I enjoyed doing that so much. And it's quite a popular video. It's actually one of my most popular videos, and I loved the book series. I've read them many times, and then I found out that my favourite character in that series has a prequel series all about him, and I didn't know that existed. So I bought the books and I thought, well, I want to do a readathon for these as well because I love them. I love Darren Shan. I have to read them. So finally I did, and I'm really happy about it. I've had a hell of a time editing that video, but it is going up on the day of filming this, actually, on the Tuesday. So when you see this, it went up yesterday. So I'll link that. Go watch it. But it was a great series. Overall, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 rating. I feel as though it was fantastic to see more of the character, as well as get little Easter eggs for the Darren Shan series. The only thing I wasn't particularly fond of were the time jumps in there, but I'm not a time jump person. If you can handle time jumps, then you'll probably love it. It's great. But this is really good. It's a story about a vampire and his life and his journey leading up to where he begins in the saga of Darren Shan. And that's really all you need to know. I loved it. I'm done. 4.5. And they are all of the books I have read/DNF'd this month in October. So thank you so much for watching. I think if you guys have read any of these books, I want you to let me know your opinions, especially if you've read any of the books I have very strong opinions on, whether I really loved or really hated them. Let me know what you thought down below. And other than that, guys, that is it from me. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Make sure you comment, because the comments mean more to me than anything in the world. Thank you again. I'll see you guys later.
SafeMusicList.com. Royalty-free music for marketing and promotional videos.